Oh, how you doing, everybody? You're hanging with the Nine and Nut. Good to be back, man. It took some much needed time off for just being crazy busy with stuff and just life in general as usually do. Everything just kind of happens at once as you try and make your way through the day and whatnot. But hope everybody's well. Hope everybody's amping up for another exciting season, and with mini camp underway, there's so much exciting news out there right now in various different areas. There's so much exciting news going on in terms of the Jimmy G conversation, a lot of what's going to happen. If you've been watching a lot of the mini camp videos, you'll see how he looks throwing the ball. Trey Lance situation. There's been a lot of videos showing Javon Kinlaw's somewhat progress, and a lot of emphasis on the defensive backfield this season, which I think is as there should be. I know recent reports have shown that Shavarius Ward has an injury, Emmanuel Mosley has an injury, nothing serious, but they'll be locked down for a little bit. So nothing to worry about there. These injuries are going to happen, especially during this time of the year where the heat can be very intense and, dehydration or just, regular tweaks of muscles and whatnot, just getting out the rust. So, there's a lot to get into, man. It's going to be exciting. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've been amping up for this for a bit. Football season for me really never ends. I'm sure the same thing for you. I don't know if you guys have this. This is my Bible when it comes to all things football. I really like Lindy Sports, the way they break things down. I like the way they, kind of have everything listed at position, give you as much of the most recent news as possible, although there's always more things happening in real time that you have to catch up with. But I like I like their book for reference and whatnot, and I think that we got a lot to we've got a lot to look out for this season. It's funny. I was looking at the NFC West. And looking at it in terms of just like overall matching it up, and I think the NFC West is always one of the most interesting divisions in football, mostly because these four teams kick the living shit out of each other regardless. And last year especially, when you had a lot more exciting things coming out of Seattle, um, the competition was always top notch. You couldn't beat it. This season, I still feel that same way, even though Seattle has no Russell Wilson, no Bobby Wagner, no Chris Carson. Um, they've been depleted a couple of players, but I still think that Pete Carroll can get that team to be competitive. I'm not saying they're going to win the division at all, but I think that they can definitely still be competitive, especially with Rashad Penny really establishing himself last year. I don't know who's going to quarterback that team, Drew Lock or Geno Smith. I hope Drew Lock. I'd rather see Drew Lock over Geno Smith, but I got to say, for the limited time that Geno Smith had control, he didn't do too bad, but that's not saying much. I think it has to do a lot with the system he was playing in and, less with individual ability. But I think that either way, either quarterback is really going to have to strive to get the ball to their two wide receivers. That's one thing we saw take a back seat last year, especially in terms of DJ Metcalf. He just signed a big deal. But it'll be interesting to see. Looking at that NFC West, you know, you always expect the somewhat experts to pick. I mean, I know in this magazine, everybody they pick the Rams to finish first, and that's just fine by me. I mean, you want to talk about the LA Rams. I still think they're overrated, even though they won a Super Bowl. I'm not trying to take that away from them, but I still think they're highly overrated. Okay, you fast forward to this year, and what you see is that they're depleted as well. They lost a lot of coaches. Obviously, we don't know what the future ODBs are going to be with them. They lost Woods, of course. They lost Von Miller. He went over to Buffalo. So, they're depleted in some ways, shape, or form. And let's face it, the Niners, we whipped their ass twice last year, and we let them off the hook in the NFC Championship game, which really is cemented in my mind now as we're revisiting it, um, rather than when it happened. Sometimes things when they're done freshly don't sting as much as when you revisit them, but you know, look, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Rams. I still think Matt Stafford is Matt Stafford. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl. I give him that. But you had to put him in the right position to do so. Matt Stafford's not in the same place quarterback skill wise as a Peyton Manning, as a Aaron Rodgers, as a Tom Brady, as a variety of other quarterbacks, as a Patrick Mahomes. Matt Stafford is Matt Stafford. He's always been that guy who great arm, definitely a talent, but in top 10 of quarterbacks, I don't really know. It depends on who the top 10 of quarterbacks we're talking about, because Matt Stafford's been in the league a bit. The biggest aspect about the Rams are going to be the health and wealth of their running game. Last year we saw they had no Cam Akers. They were nicked up all year long. That's going to be a really interesting place to see how they operate. Also, too, they lost Whitworth, the tackle. Now, I know he was a veteran, 40 years old, but still the leadership role was really big for him and was really big for that team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to fill that in. Now, they still have one of the best corners in football, Jalen Ramsey, but we know that our Deebo Samuel always gives him shit, gives him trouble. We always know that, like I said before, we've had the Rams record. We've had that number all season long. So I'm not worried about them. Okay, I don't worry about them. I don't worry about really any of those teams in particular, but I think the division is an absolute slugfest as compared to other divisions of football. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that. It's one of the most competitive divisions in football, bar none, to anywhere else, because there are some divisions that absolutely fucking suck. Let's face it. This division always seems to be exciting no matter what. You look at the Arizona Cardinals, and right away on paper they look really good. I mean, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins. They traded for Hollywood Brown. They lost Chandler Jones. They lost a lot of players in this offseason. But at the same time, you really gotta wonder what's going to be with them, because there is no DeAndre Hopkins for the first few weeks of the season. I think it's 6 weeks because of the PEDs. They're also they lost Christian Kirk in free agency. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on with them. We're going to have to, they're going to be really, we're going to have to pay close attention to what type of Kyler Murray we get. I mean, look, I'm not taking anything from Kyler Murray. I think he's an extremely talented football player, but he got injured last year. He went down. Colt McCoy came in. They beat the ever-loving fucking shit out of us in one of those weeks, which was disgusting. But Kyler Murray's a good quarterback. It's just a matter of them being on the same page. I mean, to be fair and objective, DeAndre Hopkins wasn't well all season last year. For the majority of the point, was playing through injuries as he usually does. If you were following the injury reports per week, you would have seen that he was always nicked up. But there's a guy who just always overcame, and then obviously could. I think it was against the Packers. He really blew himself out and couldn't come back in the second half of that game. But it'll be interesting to see what we have with them. Look, if you break things down on paper, per team, it looks one way. We have to see how things are going to be, overall. And that's why I say that, and I'm trying to be fair. Like, even with our 49ers, even with Trey Lance, it's wonderful to see things from training camp. That's great, but I really don't give a shit about that, okay? Because let's face it, a lot of the videos that we see sometimes are highlights for the positive. Because, and I can understand the business aspect of that. These pages, and I'm not demonizing them at all. I think some of them are wonderful. They're always going to show, and it's not always their original content. They're taking the highlights from whoever had filmed it, or it may be their original, I don't know. But they're going to show you the highlights, and sometimes, to be objective, they will show you the negatives. So the reports from camp, have been with Trey Lance. I mean, some of the reports I read were, obviously he's rusty, but he has the talent. We all know he has the talent. He's a very good athlete. I mean, that's obvious. He can run. He can throw the ball.
which is weird too. If any of you have seen him throw the ball, watch carefully. Does it me? It does look like he's throwing three quarters, kind of Philip Rivers ish a little bit. That's just me. Maybe it's just the angle of the video and whatnot, but I don't know. But it's also been said that because of the offense he's in, it's a running offense. All he has to do is do his job, as we were told the same thing about Jimmy Garoppolo. So again, then there's other reports that he's lighting it up. I don't know, couldn't tell you. I'm not in Santa Clara watching. I know, but I go by what I see. I go by what I've watched. Little things. So it's going to be interesting to see. And not, I didn't mean to just bounce off the Arizona Cardinals and just bounce right into our 49ers, but I just thought that you could make the comparison for the two in that certain area. But yeah, getting into our team, man. Look, on paper, I like our roster a lot. We did a lot of good things in the offseason. We finally friggin' gave Debo a much needed extension so we could put that to sleep. A lot of reports have shown the improvement of Brandon Ayuk, which, to be perfectly honest, I never thought. I mean, obviously every player improves, but it seems that there's a new spotlight on him because of what happened the way the season started last year. Now, my blame for that is on Shanny. Unless there was something we don't know about going on, because I thought Ayuk was going to be an up-and-coming talent, and in those first couple of weeks, we had seen the late Trent Sherfield fill in for him, and Juwan Jennings as well. But obviously, Ayuk really earned his keep as the season went on into the playoffs, and the reports are really good out of camp. If anyone has seen those scuffles with him and Fred Warner, they're very interesting. I would not like to be in the middle of them. But again, that's one aspect. You have to keep. I really like that trio in Jennings and Ayuk and Debo. I think that there was definitely something starting to be there last year, especially as we got deep into the season. And Juwan Jennings, came up really big at times. I really like that trio. What I see, it's always important to kind of build on the positives. Especially whether it's an offensive line being together for various years, a defensive line being together for various years, a defensive backfield getting used to each other, an offensive backfield, a wide receiver set, what have you. So that's one place I really like to see that they kept together, and the additions they've made, which I think could be really good. One of the ones I'm most excited about is Ray McLeod coming over from Pittsburgh. McLeod is a juggernaut. You kick return, punt return, can catch the ball. We all know that. You can use him out of the backfield. So it's always good to have another weapon that we could utilize to our advantage. So I'm happy about that, definitely. I think that the place I'm going to be looking the most isn't even the defensive backfield. It's the offensive line. Okay, that's my biggest area of concern, because we all know that this offseason we took a hit losing Laken Tomlinson. He signed with the New York Jets for a mega contract. He was an All-Pro last year, probably had the best year of his career. I still don't believe they should have let him go. But unless we're Marty McFly and Doc Emmett Brown, we can't go back in time and revisit that. We got to kind of move on and go on what we could. You could say all day, well, they didn't have the money, they didn't have this, they didn't have that, whatever, man. It doesn't really matter. It sucks we didn't re-sign him, because obviously being a running offense, what's the foremost important area of a running offense is always that front line, who you got blocking for you, and then who you got running the ball. But these days, of course, there's so many different running backs in the backfield, which is really needed and really important, especially in an offense like ours. So that's why I say that the important thing is always that front group that you have in front of you. And, just looking at this magazine and who they have planted as starters, and again, this is just the magazine's thing. I was thinking about this yesterday. The anchor of the offensive line is obviously the best offensive tackle in football, in the All-Pro, almighty Trent Williams. I mean, there's not a better offensive tackle in football. In fact, that guy keeps getting better every season. You can obviously see it. I know they're going to implement a lot of downfield blocking for him this year, which only is going to make him more vicious and make our running game much more powerful. But another question mark is on Mike McGlinchey. I mean, let's face it. Sometimes I don't know what Mike McGlinchey I'm going to get, and it's weird because I'm watching the game with family members and primarily my father, and we sometimes see a Mike McGlinchey who looks exactly like the guy we drafted to be the first round pick, and then sometimes it's not. Now he had a horrible injury this past season. You got to believe that it's got to be a make or break season for him. He's got to. There's nothing he can do but go upward. He has to show that he's legit because we need him. We need the other side of that line to be as tight as Trent Williams. Because let's face it, if that line falters, we are fucked. We are only as good. Most offenses are only as good as their offensive line, unless you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, guys that can make plays at the snap of a finger or really good on their feet. It's not going to work. And especially when you're in a run offense. Obviously, your run offense is not going to really work that well if your offensive line sucks or is struggling. Okay? So those two are the the areas we're looking at. The other area is guard. I mean, you lost Laken Tomlinson, obviously. I'm wondering, is Aaron Banks going to be the guy? I hope so. I mean, I think it would be great. They drafted him out of Notre Dame. He'll be in his second year, so hopefully it works out. But again, these are things I have to see visually. It's and camp's not going to do it. I need to see it. I need to see it in competition, and not even so much in preseason because in preseason you're not getting teams playing their rosters at full speed, at full talent. Obviously, some do, but you're only going to get maybe a lot of rookies, a lot of guys who are on the question marks that are going to play or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see. Other than Trent Williams, just looking at this, Daniel Brunskill, I mean, that's a guy I like a lot. I think he's just one of those guys who's just very underrated. Played all 17 games last year, started all 17 games last year, so it's a solidified position, obviously. One of the losses that maybe it's just me, but losing Tom Compton, I thought was interesting too, and I understand that they couldn't keep a guy like that around. Obviously, if you had the choice between him and Laken Tomlinson, you would have taken Laken Tomlinson. But Compton played by far the best football of his career last year and did a damn good job, I thought, in his short time with us. So, Jake Brendel, obviously, Spencer Buford, the rookie out of Texas San Antonio. Colton McKivitz is another guy, man. I like what I saw from him in a limited time. Again, it's going to be one of those things we're going to have to see over time how they progress or digress. But it'll be, it's going to be interesting. Jalen Moore's the other position, right? I mean, supposedly he's the candidate to start at guard after the rookie season. These are guys that we that we either signed or drafted. Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks. So, sometimes with the guys you draft, there's a lot more emphasis on them than it would be someone you sign, maybe just to fill in the gap or just to have an extra man on the roster. Guys you draft, obviously, that's a draft pick that you spent time and money on. And, your goal is to keep them around long term or get the most out of you can for them, and especially for this position. Because, like I said, up front is where it's at. Justin School. And, of course, the rookie from Fordham, Nick Zakelj. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Looks more like a project player to me. But this is going to be the area of emphasis I really want to pay attention to. I kind of have a feeling that this offensive line may not gel the first couple of weeks, but eventually getting used to playing with each other and hope. That doesn't sound too good, does it? Hopefully there's not a lot of injuries. They'll be able to experience a lot of time together and build some type of camaraderie. And, again, like if you look at it on paper, the two veterans in there, I mean, the one veteran is Trent Williams. Everybody else, has only been in the league 5 to 4 years. So he's the leader. I like that a lot. Who better than a leader to have than Trent Williams? So that's going to be an area that is going to be really interesting to see. Getting into the quarterback thing, look, I could spend all day sitting here talking about what I think is going to happen with Trey Lance. I couldn't tell you, man. Do I expect him to be Patrick Mahomes? No. Okay. I think there's a lot of smoke and bullshit out there I see on social media. I saw this, a year ago when he was drafted. People like to blow smoke up these guys' ass just for the fact of blowing smoke up these guys' ass. I don't do that. I'm a objective, diehard, um, but I'm a real fan. I don't just sit there rah rah and not pay attention to what is. I'm trying to keep it real. I hope this guy is Patrick Mahomes, but let's face it, the odds of that happening are very rare. Now, because it's possible, it definitely is. I mean, people have said, well, he is the next. Well, show me how he's the next Patrick Mahomes exactly. We need to see that, okay? Um, but look, if he, I think, comes into the season and is whatever, it is plays similar to the way Jimmy G did last year in terms of able to be, stable and able to lead with limitations, I'll take that. I'll take what we did last year times 10 every year. I don't give two shits. Because, again, I don't expect this guy, and I'm not demonizing him, but I don't expect him to be, a super duper star right away. And he could be. I hope he does for our sake. I really do. But we got to be, objective about it. I don't know what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. Right now, the reports are that he's not going to get traded, supposedly. Of course, that could always change as we march down in the preseason. But he looks, from the videos I've seen at camp, the passes he's been throwing, looks like the shoulder injury has not been really limiting. Because let's face it, at that quarterback position, I'm still trying to figure out why Nate Sudfeld is even on the roster. In fact, I like Mr. Irrelevant. I call me crazy. Brock Purdy is a guy I'm going to root for. Again, from camp, I've seen some reports that he's not doing too bad. Came rated really high. I know he was taking the last player in the draft, but again, we have to wait and see how things work out, because you can't keep 4 quarterbacks on that roster. Obviously, I think if most what's going to happen is they're going to keep 2, red shirt 1. Nate Sudfeld really shouldn't be there. I'm sorry. So, I mean, if you have to keep Jimmy G, you keep him. What's the worst that could happen? If you can't trade him, you keep him. And I hate to say it, by this point right now, if you couldn't trade him, I think the odds of us getting rid of him are rare. And I will say this, you never know if the reason why they're not trading him is because there's something that they don't see in Trey Lance. I'm not saying this is the reason, but I'm saying it's possible. So it's always better to have that veteran backup than it is to have a rookie, I guess, sometimes, or a guy who's like, hasn't taken a snap since Jesus Christ moonwalked across the water. All right. One of the areas I feel great about is our offensive backfield. Obviously Elijah Mitchell had a fantastic rookie season this year. I think he's going to do that again. I'd love to see him do even more, crack 1,000 yards. We need to see a lot more out of Trey Sermon. That was not a good rookie season for him whatsoever. So we need to get a lot more out of him. JaMychal Hasty, I like. A nice change of type back, a juggernaut again. Throw him the ball out of the backfield. I like the way he runs. He runs with zest and bounce and pump. One thing I'm going to say that I always keep repeating myself like a broken record, I do want to see, because he's the best fullback in football, and he's one of the most players that's underutilized in terms of catching the ball. Throw the goddamn ball to Juice more, please, in the offense. Make him a safety valve. I don't care what you do. Let him get 45 to 60 catches per year. I guarantee it will only help the offense. The guy is just a great talent, not just for blocking, not just for leading, running up and smashing the defensive players, making pads. He's very smart. Throw him the ball. He has a good hand. He's like another receiver out of the backfield. Jeff Wilson Jr. is a guy I've always liked. I'm happy they re-signed him. I like the way he runs. I think he runs with a little bit of nastiness, which we need. And I love when he fills in, because I think he's really good by the goal line. I want to see him be utilized more, not just be when there is, unfortunately, hope not any injuries. And then we have the rookie, Tyron Davis-Price. He came highly rated from Louisiana State. I know there were a lot of people who were down on that draft pick, but from the tape I saw, I liked what I saw from him. So again, this isn't an area I worry about much, because it's a running offense, and Channy's a running games guru. He's much like his father was when he was in Denver. and he had Mike Anderson and Terrell Davis and Olundus Gary, and then you could have put John the Baptist in that backfield, and he would have found a way to get 1,000 yards. So I'm not worried about that whatsoever. Moving on, looking at the defense. Hey, look, man, we still have one of the best defensive players in football, in my opinion, the best defensive players, Nick Bosa. Wrecking ball guy is just a talent beyond the stars. Ariki Armstead is playing his best football ever. Other than that, we lost a lot. We lost DJ Jones. We lost Arden Key, two players I didn't want to see go. I thought we should have kept him, especially DJ Jones, because I thought DJ Jones was playing the best football of his career last season. In fact, if you weren't watching last season, that was his peak. He was a force to be reckoned with. And again, it's a shame that guys like that go under the radar sometimes because their numbers may not be the most shiny in terms of sacks and tackles, but it's everything else that he does that was so important. And we've been trying to fill that gap ever since we unfortunately traded away DeForest Buckner. Now, moving on to that, obviously we all know we need to see a lot out of Javon Kinlaw. I'm sure he's aware of this and knows this. I'm sure that guy is working his ass off. I want to see him flourish. I want to see him be an absolute ass kicker back in that defensive backfield. That defensive line, because we need him. We need the pressure up front. We need to stop the run. We can't have holes up there. We're not. It's going to be a long, long season. Samson Ebukam came on a little bit at the end of last season. I want to see a little bit more of him. I think he's going to be utilized a lot more now that D Ford is gone. Jordan Willis, we'll never forget Jordan Willis's name. He'll go down in 49 in history for that block. But I want to see him utilized more because I think that he can come in on certain packages and cause a lot of pressure on quarterbacks and backfield. So the defensive the defensive area, the defensive line of the team. Obviously, there's no more Reese Hurst. He's out for the season, but I don't think he was going to be much of a factor anyway. Hassan Ridgeway, another guy. I think Ridgeway's not a bad player from what I've seen from him. I think he's a run stuffer. I don't think he's going to get you a lot of sacks, but I think he can maybe hopefully fill into where DJ Jones was. Stuff the run, take up some room, absorb offensive linemen and free up the other three defensive players and the linebackers. So the area that we have the best going for us is our linebacking corps. Let's face it. I mean, Al Shahir, Dre Greenlaw, and of course, Fred Warner. It's one of the best linebacking packages in football. Now, of course, we need them to stay healthy. We saw Dre Greenlaw all nicked up last season. If they all stay healthy, I don't think there's a linebacking corps in football that can compete with them. So, not worried about that. Defensive backfield area, I feel really good about too. I mean, I like Emmanuel Mosley a lot. I think he's very underrated. I think a lot of 49er fans feel the same way. I think he watching him over the years, he's become, I don't want to say a lockdown corner. I don't want to put him on the same place as Jalen Ramsey, but I think he's a stable, good corner that can get the job done. Now, all eyes are going to be on Shavarius Ward, and much reason for that, of course, is the amount of money that we're paying him. And the fact that he was our stud free agent signed away from the Kansas City Chiefs. Going to need to see a lot out of him, obviously. But I think a lot of the spotlight is also going to be on Talanoa Hufanga. Guy came on last year. I like what I saw from him. He reminds me a little bit of a poor man's Polamalu. I know that's saying a lot. Polamalu was more of a dynamic hitter, but also a very good athlete. But I think there's some, it's not just the hair, but I think maybe there could be something in there. I like what I saw out of him a lot. And other than that, listen, Jimmy Ward has become the most stable player back there. I always say Jimmy Ward's like having a quarterback back there. He's another guy like Trent Williams, who's playing his best football into his 30s, which is great. Because it's not an easy position he's playing. I love what I see out of Jimmy Ward. Even if the numbers aren't there in terms of being very pretty and sexy and interceptions and whatnot, Jimmy Ward's a total captain, man. He's definitely what you want in that defensive backfield to be the leader. So, again, I'm liking what I see. Defensively, I feel really good. Now, of course, that can all change. God forbid if there's injuries. God forbid if things, if we're getting beat, if whatever. But I think that all eyes are obviously going to be on Trey Lance, and also it's going to be on the offense. Mike McDaniel's gone; he goes over to be the head coach of the Dolphins. Another area that we really have to pay attention to is, when watching Trey Lance, we'll get to know more of this. Is new quarterbacks coach Brian Griese. Hey man, I hope this guy. I was a little shocked by the move, to be honest, because Brian Griese was never panned out to be as good as he was supposed to be. I know the lineage um, to his father obviously should have been better. He was I don't even know what you can. He was okay. Is he going to be good as a quarterback coach? I couldn't tell you. So these are things that we really have to take into consideration and kind of give time to. Another guy I want to see a lot of is Kerry Hyder Jr. 2 years ago, Kerry Hyder Jr. had what, 7.5, 8.5, 9.5 sacks for us. I hated to lose him in last offseason when he went to Seattle. He didn't do anything there, but then again, he wasn't really utilized that much because I noticed that when 49ers were playing Seattle, he wasn't even in some of the packages, which I can't understand. So I hope he kind of is able to revamp what we had 2 seasons ago. Yeah, man. I mean, it's gonna be a week by week type thing, as football always is. I don't think we're coming into the season like a team like the Buffalo Bills who look like they're at their peak. I think that we're coming into the season as a sort of question mark yet well-rounded team who's able to get things done and who's able to squeeze out wins when they need to. And sometimes that's a lot better than being a team that's at their peak because no one sees you coming. No one saw us coming last year. Okay. But I also want to see what the running game is going to look like with Anthony Lynn as running back coach. Okay. We've got a number of new coaches here. Nick Sorensen, okay, his first year with us. Brian Schneider. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. It's going to be really interesting to see if we can really duplicate what we had last year. And I'm not even breaking down the schedule just yet because that's going to be done in another podcast. But just looking at this schedule, this ain't no easy schedule, man, at all. Just looking at some of the games we're gonna be playing: the Chargers, Denver, obviously the Rams, Cardinals, and Seattle, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Miami. That's gonna be Las Vegas. I mean that's gonna be one for the ages. Teacher versus student, Mike Shanny versus Mike McDaniel. It'll definitely be interesting, but. Keep your eyes open for the preseason game this week. Supposedly, I think the offense, Trey Lance is going to start. The offense is going to play a couple of series, thank God. Hopefully, we'll get to see a lot of Brock Purdy. Hopefully, we'll get to see a lot of that Sammy Gray wide receiver. We'll get to see a lot of Javon Kinlaw. We'll get to see a lot of other guys who obviously, Hassan Ridgeway, who we signed in the offseason, or some of the rookies. That's what preseason's good for, man. Other than that, don't take it too serious. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in that period and as the weeks go down until the regular season begins. So let's stay objective about it. Let's not be these smoke blowers or these people, these type of fans that you can't say anything negative or against their so-called narrative. And if you're not rah, 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 you're not a real fan. That's just a whole bunch of horse shit. Okay. But again, we got to keep it in perspective that this is one of the toughest divisions in football. And again, even if a team doesn't come out of that division winning 13 games, I still think pound for pound within the division, it's one of the best overall, most competitive divisions in football. And from that division, think about it. We didn't finish first last year. We bounced into the playoffs as a wild card, and we ran people. We ran Dallas. We beat Green Bay. We had the Rams on the fence. So Man, is it going to be exciting this season. Um, so yeah, man, it's good to be back after a little bit needed vacation, but I'll be hitting these podcasts again a lot more. Reach out to me with any questions, any comments. I'd love to hear back from everybody. I really appreciate anybody and everybody who listens. And you know, like I said, pay attention to the videos from camp, but in the back of your mind, kind of stay objective about it, because you also want to see what the negatives are, but you may not be hearing about. Also, let's pay attention to a lot of the injuries that are going on. Hopefully, those are minimized. So, hey, man, been good to be back. Looking forward to it. See you guys real soon. Thank you.